Welcome back. This is chapter 14, part 12. Albrecht Dürer. Van Eyck mastered detail, color, texture, and realistic portraiture, but knowledge of mathematical perspective had not yet come from Italy. Like his fellow Northern Renaissance artists, he accepted what he saw, but did not search for underlying universal laws. One man took it upon himself to bring the ideas of the High Renaissance to Northern Europe, the German artist Albrecht Dürer, who became known as the Leonardo of the North because of the variety of his interests, writing treatises on painting, perspective, human proportions, fortifications, and many other topics. Like Leonardo, he did many sketches from nature, studying its most delicate details. Dürer is probably the first artist to paint pictures devoted solely to a self-portrait. His self-portrait in 1500 shows him at the age of 28 after his return from Italy, where he studied the great works of the Italian Renaissance and became determined to bring this knowledge north. The careful detailing of his fur collar is very typical of the Northern style, but his interest in High Renaissance composition is revealed by the pyramid construction of the picture. If you look closely, you will discover, in fact, that the composition contains several triangles. The portrait's striking resemblance to European images of Christ is conscious, but not blasphemous. Dürer is saying he is a creator too, not his hand's position. Despite the exceptional skill demonstrated in his self-portrait, Dürer's greatest talent was not as a painter, but as a printmaker. His graphic work in metal engravings and woodcuts, such as the Four Horsemen from his Apocalypse series, made him rich and famous in his time and maintains his reputation even today. It is amazing that 500 years ago, the limited tools he would have had to make something like this today in colleges and universities with woodcut, we often use Dremel tools and things like that. He only had gouges and knives and things like that. He inherited his skill from his father, a goldsmith, who trained him technical mastery was combined with an inventive mind, a marvelous eye for detail, and the patience to render detail upon detail. A good businessman, too, he hired salesmen to sell his prints across Europe. He printed them so that they were affordable to middle-class collectors. As an artist, Dürer demonstrated that effects once thought possible only in paint could be accomplished by a master printmaker and help make the print the equal of any other fine art form. He was recognized as being among the greatest masters even in his own time. In discussion of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, Michelangelo said of Dürer, "I esteem him so much that if I were not Michelangelo, I should prefer to be Albrecht Dürer than Emperor Charles V." Hans Holbein in the Protestant Reformation. In one of the many treatises, Dürer included among a painter's most important responsibilities to preserve the appearance of men after their death. A younger German, Hans Holbein, made that goal in his main occupation, became one of the greatest portraitists who ever lived. He came from a family of painters, began his career after Dürer's mission to spread the influence of the Italian Renaissance had taken hold. Like Dürer, Holbein traveled to see the great Italian masterpieces firsthand, and by the time he was 30 years old, he had assimilated the learning of Renaissance. Settling in Switzerland, he painted beautiful altarpieces, was on his way to becoming the leading painter of the German-speaking world when that world in Europe suddenly changed profoundly. He came from a family of painters and began his career after Dürer's mission to spread the influence of the Italian Renaissance had taken hold. Like Dürer, Holbein traveled to see the great Italian masterpieces firsthand, and by the time he was 30 years old, he had assimilated the learning of Renaissance. Settling in Switzerland, he painted beautiful altarpieces, and things suddenly changed. This is Wings of the Kalsheim Altarpiece, 1502. And so many of these altarpieces are hinged, and on high holy days they would open up to reveal the brightest colors and most detailed panels. So the Protestant Reformation, led by Martin Luther, turned Europe upside down and had a deep and pervasive effect on the art world too. The rebellion against the Roman Church was sparked by the Church's practices, like the sale of indulgences, which Pope Julius II had zealously promoted to pay for his new St. Peter's. That is, Northern Europeans were outraged by the idea that Christians could buy their way into heaven. Luther and his followers preached that Christians needed only faith and knowledge of the Bible to reach salvation, but the rise of the Protestant Reformation came with a terrible cost for art and artists. There was a wave of iconoclasm, the destruction of religious imagery, though Luther, a close friend of a painter, was horrified by this development. Many Protestants associated imagery not only with the Roman Church, but like the early Christians, with idolatry. All over Northern Europe, Protestant mobs swept into churches, destroying altarpieces, decapitating statues, and burning crucifixes. The lack of decoration in most Protestant churches today is a result of this darker side of the Reformation. Prague workshop Pietà from 1400 from amongst the sculptures found beneath the burned minster. So you can see how it had been destroyed during that time. While most of the religious paintings were destroyed, Holbein desperately looked for a safe haven where he could continue his career. He sailed to England and was given refuge by Sir Thomas More, a world-famous writer, scholar, and political leader. His portrait of Sir Thomas More was painted soon after Holbein's arrival, when More was Speaker to the House of Commons. With meticulous detail, it shows an intelligent, dignified, and successful man wearing the symbol of his high office. The picture provides sensual pleasures as well. Holbein masterfully reproduces a variety of textures. More's soft hands, the stubble of his beard, red velvet, black stain, gleaming gold, and fur. Underlying all of Holbein's work is his marvelous drawing ability. We believe every detail without question. We are convinced that this is how Sir Thomas More looked. When the Reformation came to England, even powerful friends like More could not prevent the end of Holbein's career as a painter of religious art. But More helped Holbein become Henry VIII's court portraitist. He was a prolific painter, so even though he died of the plague at a relatively young age of 46, we have an almost first-hand acquaintance with the many members of the Tudor court. This is his painting of Henry VIII in 1540. If we compare Holbein's portrait of Sir Thomas More to Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, we can see some of the characteristic differences between Northern and Italian Renaissance painting. Northern artists accentuated detail and crispness of edges, while in the South, a soft, diffused light, sfumato, eliminated definite edges. Interest in delineating fabrics, textures, and patterns precisely was the common feature in Northern Renaissance art. Thank you.